Whereas when they come on structure, it is a collection of heterogeneous elements, or all the elements are of different data type. What you have here, we have created the structure, which are the data members. But still now, we are not created which are the members here. How many students are there here? What do you mean by structure? Structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. Sometimes it may contain homogeneous elements also. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysore. Today, we will start with the first session of Structures chapter. Whereas in the annual exam, from this chapter, you will get only one question, that is on part C for 3 marks. Then total weightage of this chapter is 3 marks in the annual exam. Only one question you will get from this chapter. Whereas on today's session, you will study regarding introduction regarding structure. What do you mean by structure? What is the difference between structure as well as array? How to declare a structure and how to defining a structure, with that declaring a structure or defining a structure variable. Regarding that, today you will come to know. First, when you come on structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. But when you come on arrays, there it is a collection of homogeneous elements we used to say. Whereas in array, we used to declare int a of 10, then totally 10 elements are there, all the 10 elements of type integer. That is regarding arrays. But when they come on structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. One element may be integer, another element may be float, another element may be character format, or it may sometimes same data type also. Whereas structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. It stores different elements of different data type by the same name here. Whereas in the array, by the same name only it will store, but all the elements are same data type. We have seen variables of simple data types such as float, char as well as int. Like this, we are getting simple data types. Variables of such type represent one item of information. For example, if I am going to write int a, then only one item of type integer. For example, if I am going to write float b, then only one variable of type float here. Whereas when they come on structure, it is a collection of heterogeneous elements, or all the elements are of different data type. A structure is a collection of simple variables. The variables in a structure can be of same or different types. Some can be int, some can be float, and so on. For example, if I am going to consider student structure, their name of type character, register number of type integer, fees of type float. That means all the elements, all the variables are of different data type. Then we are using structure concept. The data items in a structure are called as members of the structure. Whichever items we are using here, that items can be called as members of the structure. Already I told you the example. In student, we have student name as well as, for example, fees as well as the register number. Then we call it as data members here. The syntax of structure is almost identical to that of class. A structure is a collection of data, while a class is a collection of both data and functions here. But when they come on class is a collection of related objects we used to say, and this class contains both data members as well as member functions. But when they come on structure, there it is only contains the members only, data members only it will contain, not the functions. But whereas in class we have both the data as well as functions are there. And in both the case, whereas in structure we are using the keyword struct, whereas in the class we are using the keyword class. And in both the case, everything is declared inside the flower bracket. After flower bracket, you have to put semicolon. In both the case, the main difference is there In structure, it contains only the data members, whereas in class, it contains both the data members as well as functions. Next, we'll defining a structure. How to define a structure? The general syntax of structure. If you observe this structure, here first compulsory you have to use the keyword struct, then structure name. Whatever name you want, you can give. For example, I want to create for student, then we are going to use the keyword struct, then student is the structure name. Student is a structure name, then here we'll open the bracket, then you have to write the data members. For example, register number I want of type integer, int register number, then semicolon, then whichever variable you want you can take. For example, there I am to take char name. Here inside the bracket I am going to write 10. That means for name maximum it can take 10 characters. Then fees of type float. Then finally close the flower bracket and then semicolon. It means that here we are compulsory using the keyword struct. Then afterwards structure name. Inside the flower bracket you have to mention the data type as well as member names. Whichever members you want, all the member name you have to write. For each and every members you have to mention the data type and then member name. All the things you have to mention there. Then data type, member n, then close the bracket, then semicolon. It means that here we are using only the data members as well as structure name, and then we are using the keyword struct. The process of defining a structure includes giving the structure name. What is the name of the structure? Whereas in this example, we are given student is the name of the structure, called the tag, telling the compiler the name. What exactly the name of that structure? Tag name. This can be called as tag name or structure name also we can say. And the data type of each piece of data you want to be included in a structure. Which data type, each and every element, which data type, everything you have to mention here. This is the method to define a structure. Then now you come to know what do you mean by structure? Structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. Sometimes it may contain homogeneous elements also. But here when they come on arrays, they are compulsory. It is a homogeneous elements only. It's a collection of homogeneous elements in arrays. But when they come on structure, it may be homogeneous or it may be heterogeneous. Both it can contain. While writing the structure, general syntax, struct is a keyword, then you have to tag name, then which are the data members, which data type it is, that you have to declare. Next, we'll move on how to defining a structure. Here on that, you know that the keyword struct is introduced. The struct introduces the structure definition. Next comes the structure name or tag, which is part of the structure. If you observe here, first struct is the keyword, then next structure name you have to write. The declaration of structure members are enclosed in a parenthesis. Here if you observe here, enclosed in a parenthesis, especially flower brackets we are using to represent all the data members as well as all the data type, which data type we are using to represent everything you write inside the flower bracket. Then the list of all structure members are called as templates here. The list of all structure members here, if you observe here, in this whichever members you have, all those things can be called as templates. The semicolon follows the closing braces terminating the entire structure. If you observe here, after this, here we have opened the flower bracket and here we have closed it. At the end, compulsory you have to put semicolon. It means that that is a termination of the structure. This is regarding defining a structure. Next, we'll explain this with one example. Consider I want to create an employee structure. Then struct is the keyword. Then employee is the tag name, that is structure name. In this, we have ID number of type integer and name. Maximum here we are given 15. That means maximum here it can take 15 characters. If I am going to write just char name, then only one character it will take for name. But in the bracket if you write 15, then maximum 15 characters it will take. Then designation of type character type we are given. It means that the employee contains 4 attributes. The first one is ID number, the second one is name, and third one is the designation, and then the fourth one is salary of type float. If you observe in this example, we have one is integer and 2 character and one more is float. From this I can say that it is a collection of heterogeneous elements. Everything is enclosed in a parenthesis, that is in a flower bracket. At the end we are written semicolon. This is the general structure of a structure and this is an example for structure concept. Next we will move on defining a structure. How many bytes it will take, that also we can able to identify. If you observe here, ID we are given of type integer. For integer it will take how many bytes? If you observe, then integer occupies only 2 bytes of the memory space. For character it will take only 1 bytes of memory space, but here we are given 15. It means that maximum it will take 15 memory bytes, whereas for integer it will take 2 bytes. Here for name it will take 15 bytes. Then once again designation 10 we are given, 10 of type character, then once again it will take 10 memory bytes. Then for float, especially salary we are given as float format, then for float it will occupy 4 bytes of memory. Like that we can able to identify how much memory it will require. Here the structure requires an area in memory which is 31 bytes long it requires. How to identify? If you observe this figure gives how exactly the memory will given for each and every data members here. First one ID we are given of type integer, that's why 2 bytes of memory it will take. See the example here, ID takes 2 bytes of memory. Then name, for name here we are given 15. It means that especially if it is character data type, then only 1 byte of memory it will take. But here we are given 15, that's why it will take 15 bytes of memory space. That's why 15 bytes. Then designation is also once again character data type, but here if you observe, for designation we are given 10 characters. That's why here it will take 10 bytes. And the last one here, especially the salary, if you observe the salary of type float, then it will occupy 4 bytes of memory. Totally 31 bytes of memory it occupies to represent this structure concept, especially on this example. Depending upon the data type as well as depending upon the student or employee, whichever you want, for that depending upon that memory it will take. For example, if I am going to take student, struct student, then here for example I am to take int register number, and one more is for example name of type character. Here for example I am going to give it as 10. Then one more float of type fees, then semicolon, then I am going to close this structure. Here for the first one it will occupy 2 bytes, whereas here it occupies 10 bytes. For fees it will occupy 4 bytes. Then totally here 16 bytes of memory it will occupy. So depending upon which type we are used, depending upon that the memory can be allocated there. Next we will move on the declaring a structure or defining structure variables. How to define the structure variables? Whereas in the previous case we have just explained how to declare the structure. Now we are explaining how to declare the structure variables. If you observe in the previous case, what you have here, we have created the structure which are the data members. But still now we are not created which are the members here. How many students are there here? Whereas here, how many employees are there? Like that we are not declared. That also it is possible here. That is by using defining structure variables. A structure can be declared or structure variable can be defined as we defined basic built-in data type. If you observe the syntax, here in the syntax struct structure name, then variable here to write. In the example, struct student S1 comma S2. That means here how many variables are there? 2 variables, that is S1 and S2 are the variables of this student structure. Now is it clear? It means that here S1 and S2 are the variables of type student. Now we will explain this with one example. Consider for employee struct is the keyword, then employee is the structure name. Here we are given the data, that is int student ID, then next one char name, whichever how many variables you want, that many characters you want, you can give. Then designation 10, salary of type float. Before closing the semicolon, before putting semicolon, you have to write employee 1, employee 2. From that, I can say that two variables are there, that is employee 1 as well as employee 2 in this employee structure. Whereas here, on that employee 1, I am going to call it as manager, and employee 2, I am going to call it as assistant. For employee 1, also we have ID, then name, designation, salary. In the same way for employee 2, that is for assistant also, we have ID, name, designation as well as salary. In the same way, for example, for student, if I am going to creating, then struct is the keyword, then student. Student is the name of the structure. Here, inside the flower bracket, we will declare the data members, that is int, register number, then next, name of type character. Inside the bracket, how many characters you want, you can give. Then fees of type float. Then next we will close the bracket. But before putting semicolon at the end, now we can declare the students, whichever the students you want. For example, student 1, first variable, then student 2. Whereas if you observe, student 1 as well as student 2 are the variables and student is the structure name. In this, for student 1 also, for student 1, what are the data we have? One is register number and then name, then fees. In the same way, for student 2 also, we have the same way, that is register number, name as well as fees. It means that whatever data members we have, for that data variables we have, for that we can able to identify how much memory space it will require. Now is it clear? The next class will explain the remaining concept, especially on structure, how to initialize the structures, variables as well as how to access this. When they come on structure as well as array, whereas array is a collection of elements also. Whereas structure is also a collection of elements only, but the main difference between array and structure is, whereas in array it is a collection of homogeneous elements only. But when they come on structure, it may be homogeneous or it may be heterogeneous. Already I told you in the next class you will study regarding how to initialize, how to access the members of this structure, how to perform, identify the memories, everything you will come to know in the next session. Thank you for all of you.